Ransomware is software that can infiltrate your business through email, enabling cyber criminals to hijack sensitive information as ransom for your own data's release. Leveraging Barracuda email security with advanced threat detection can stop a ransomware attack in its tracks. As an added measure, Barracuda Backup allows you to recover your data without having to surrender to extortion. Crime doesn't pay when you protect your business data with Barracuda. Go to barracuda.com/ransomware to learn more.
ESPN FC is presented by Heineken.
Welcome into the latest edition of ESPN FC. Unlike Bruce Arena, we've got a familiar lineup here. Shaka Hislop, Ali Moreno and Stevie Nicol. Taylor Twellman will be with us in a moment. Let's start at Azteca, shall we? Everyone's shocked when the starting 11 was announced. No less than 7 changes to the side that beat Trinidad and Tobago midweek. It looked like it was trouble for Bruce Arena and his side. 4 minutes in, though, you can argue Mexico should have been reduced to 10 men. Salcedo with the elbow. Nothing was given for this, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, that's a red card. I mean, he just blatantly smashes him in the face.
And how's about this? 6 minutes in, Michael Bradley with an absolute stunner.
Willingness by the American team to pressure higher up the field. Turnover by Javier Chicharito Hernandez, and Michael Bradley steps into the path of the pass and then gets his head up at full speed. Delicious finish by Michael Bradley.
Then, 20 minutes in, should this have been a penalty?
100%. All day long. Goalkeeper rattles him.
Goalkeepers union, Shaq?
In Guzan's defence,
Oh.
we know we can get away with that.
Yes or no?
That's all I'm saying.
What a game changer this was, though, from Bobby Wood. A swing and a miss. And take a look at this then from the counter-attack for the host. They put it together beautifully. It would come to Carlos Vela on this near side, who would channel his inner Iron Robin. Cuts it inside, past Marcus de Beasley, and then...
Once Carlos Vela gets it out on the right-hand side, there's only one thing he's going to try to do, and that's cut inside. If you're DeMarcus Beasley, you got to force him outside. He doesn't. 1-1.
7 minutes to go in the first half. Omar Gonzalez with the chance, puts it wide. And then 2 minutes later...
No.
Is that a penalty?
Nope.
No penalty. Poor touch. Right there. And then he looks to go down.
So is it a dive?
Yeah, of course it is.
Let's take it into the second half. What a free kick from Hector Herrera.
Look at how sweetly he strikes this. Guzan nowhere near, despite how much grass it had to cover.
And Michael Bradley with an effort from range once again off the post.
Almost gets his second. Good strike. Just drifts away from Ochoa. Comes off the post.
And then with 10 minutes to go, Aquino with the chance that he blasts over the bar. It finishes then. Mexico 1, USA 1. An enthralling game. Plenty to talk about. Taylor Twellman, let's start, shall we, with the starting 11. I think it's fair to say it took pretty much everyone by surprise. What worked and what didn't?
It's a good question, Dan. First and foremost, I think this was different circumstances other than your traditional 3 days rest in between games. So after the game, Bruce Arena made it very clear in the press conference. He said it to his group immediately when they came into camp. Against Mexico, we're going to play 3 center backs. We're going to make 7 changes, and we're going to go to Azteca, sit and defend with fresher legs. And obviously some 3 or 4 dynamic players with Bobby Wood, Christian Pulisic, Paul Arriola, and whatnot. When I look at it, I was okay with 3 center backs, to be honest with you, because Mexico likes those slashing runs from out wide to inside. But it's your prototypical game at Azteca. What was the possession number? 76 to 24%. It is what it is. I will say this, though, Dan. The one thing that I was reflecting on immediately after the game is I can't remember the last time the United States went to Azteca and arguably had the better chances. When you look at it, they had 3 legit chances to maybe steal 3 points. But when it's all said and done, they get their 1 point at Azteca. They've got 2 points on the road under Bruce and 6 points at home, 8 points. I'd be shocked if they don't end up going to Russia for World Cup.
Who were the stars for the US, Taylor, in your opinion?
I thought DeAndre Yedlin was very good, especially after getting a yellow card. I thought Tim Ream, Jeff Cameron were solid. Obviously, Michael Bradley, if he scores the second goal, they're probably building a statue for him in Mexico. I thought Christian Pulisic was very quiet. I thought Bobby Wood was very limited, although traditional goal scorer game, if he scores in the 23rd minute, we're talking about them winning. But it was a solid performance. I do like the proposition of Kellen Acosta next to Michael Bradley. And remember, the topic of discussion all summer now will be when Jermaine Jones is healthy, who plays next to Michael Bradley? I think you got to give Kellen Acosta a real look.
So what is the A team, Taylor, today after that? After what we've just seen, which I think a lot of people say, right, you got, like, basically it was all about getting 3 points against Trinidad, and anything was a bonus today. And it turned out to be a great performance. You could argue almost better than that against Trinidad and Tobago, despite the fact they only got a point. Bruce Arena's got a lot of thinking to do, hasn't he?
I think he does. Obviously, Bobby Wood gives the United States a different dynamic up front than Josie Altidore. He's more mobile. He's a little bit more dynamic, but Bruce Arena, throughout his entire life of coaching, loves a target forward, a big body up front. What does he do with Clint Dempsey? He's got some 4, 5, 6 center backs. I think the depth at center back, whether or not John Brooks shows up, the John Brooks from Germany shows up for the John Brooks of the national team, that's a question because he hasn't had great performances. Fabian Johnson was flat, I thought, Thursday night in Denver. He's got some depth questions. I think the biggest question, though, goes back to the point, because at the World Cup in Brazil 3 years ago, Dan, Jermaine Jones was arguably their best player.
Yeah.
And so now what do? You cannot count on a 36-year-old Clint Dempsey and a 36-year-old Jermaine Jones. So that's where the question is, not necessarily the A-B team, but I think more importantly, who do those are two big characters, two huge players. Who fills that void? That's a huge question for the next 12 months.
Like many boys, I think when we saw the starting 11 for this time, I thought, what on earth is Bruce Arena doing? Brad Guzan in goal, Tim Ream, you know, what's happening? But it paid off. It worked.
I think the gamble in going with a more athletic team rather than the experienced team. So you don't see a Clint Dempsey out there, you think, uh-oh. You don't see Josie Altido out there, you think, wait a minute, what are we doing? Tim Howard is not there. And so you would have thought that experience would have been the choice by Bruce Arena going into Azteca, guys that have been there before. Instead, he goes with a more athletic team, with the team that is going to be able to pressure higher up the field when need be, when necessary, and the team that is going to give you an outlet offensively as a real threat on a counterattack with speed, with pace, trying to match what Mexico does technically with the ball at their feet, and trying to do that with your athleticism. It makes sense if you can look at it from that perspective, and it did pay off on Michael Bradley's goal. It's great execution by Michael Bradley, but the principle of the team stepping together into passing lanes and winning the ball higher up the field allows then Michael Bradley to execute the way that he did. So it worked out for Bruce Arena, but let's not forget, for long stretches in this match, the United States, as you would expect at Azteca, were hanging on and defending. And last-ditch effort defensively, Mexico were not very good in finding that final ball. They got frustrated. They lacked energy and ideas in the final third. Yeah. And from there, it became a whole lot easier to defend for the United States.
Michael Bradley's gone, Stevie.
No,
do you think he had that in his locker?
I didn't know. No, listen, there's nothing harder than to try and be delicate when you're running at pace with the ball moving away from you. I think Bruce got rewarded for being brave. I certainly wouldn't have made so many changes. Looking at it now, you understand why he's right. It's all about legs. You know, sometimes having legs rather than experience pays off. And that's what we saw tonight. Because this team, how many of them ever played together before? But you know what? Great lines. The tactics of closing the ball early, I thought early in the game, sent a message to Mexico. But as I said, he deserves all the credit for being brave, because I wouldn't have done it.
Shaq, of course, eyebrows raised with Brad Guzan starting ahead of Tim Howard. Bruce Arena was asked about this after the match and says they didn't want Tim Howard playing 2 games in such close proximity to each other after the groin surgery that he had. Does that make sense?
It makes sense now, kind of looking back on things in hindsight, yes, because because US gets a point. But if Brad Guzan doesn't have a good game, if he's at fault for a couple of the goals and they go down, I'm not sure how he recovers his own international future. Saying that, and as much as you're talking about 2 games in 48 hours, the first was against my home country, bottom of the heck, Trinidad and Tobago. And if you are going to play a weaker team, maybe it makes sense to play that team against Trinidad and Tobago. But again, in hindsight, you look back, US now have 4 points from those 2 games. And given the remit for Bruce Arena, when he took charge, it was to qualify for the World Cup. For them to do that, you say we've got to win our home games, so maybe playing your strongest team in those home games makes the most sense. Finishing above Mexico, if you still qualify, doesn't come with any additional prize for the US. So looking at it in big picture, it makes sense by Bruce.
Yeah, big picture. Hey, Taylor, how different it is to how we were looking at Hex just, a few weeks ago. It's very much optimistic now, isn't it? Looking at the big picture for the US team.
Oh, 100%, Dan. And I agree with what all 3 gentlemen said. I think Alejandro's right in the sense that Bruce Arena went with a more dynamic team, especially with the 3 guys up front. Stevie hit the nail on the head, and I think Bruce Arena learned from his mistakes in 2005. We trained in Colorado Springs for 17 days, yet when the European-based players came, of all the players that trained in Colorado Springs for 15 days and 17 days in altitude, he only started 2. So after the game, I remember him saying, we needed legs, we needed legs. That's exactly what he did. And Shaka's right. Listen, could you have played this lineup against Trinidad? Okay, fine, maybe. But Trinidad's the must-win game. The Mexico, you're playing with fire. Bruce Arena was hired for one simple thing: qualify for the World Cup. And the one thing he knows better than anyone in this country is CONCACAF. When you look at 2 away games, getting 2 points, with one of those at Azteca, 2 home games getting 6, he's completely changed it. Now you've got the Gold Cup. But the home game against Costa Rica on our air, Dan, that's still a massive game because you don't want to lose 2 games at home in this round of World Cup qualifying. That's still a massive game when it's all said and done.
Taylor Twellman, thank you very much for your insight. Let's just remind you how things stand then in the Hex. After tonight's match, United States level on points with Costa Rica, who still got to play Trinidad and Tobago this week. Remember, it's the top 3 that qualify for Russia. Let's go across to Hercules Gomez, who was at the game at the Azteca. Your big takeaway from the draw, Herc?
A calculated risk by Bruce Arena. He started out a 5-man back line, 3 center backs, took us all really for fools. Nobody thought he would do that. It was a calculated risk. 2 lines, 2 blocks, defensive blocks, waiting, being patient, countering with speed, and it paid off. A great 1-1 result in the mystical Estadio Azteca.
Meanwhile, Herc, from a Mexican perspective, this will feel like 2 points drop, won't it, against what is effectively a USB team?
Well, you could say it was a USB team, but this wasn't the strongest Mexican side either. Juan Carlos Osorio missing 5 regular players. Rafa Marquez, their captain and leader. Andres Guardado and Tecatito Corona, that fabulous winger who plays in Porto, was one of those players missing. So it wasn't like they were at their strongest as well. But yes, they did drop points, and it's only the 3rd time ever the U.S. men's national team's actually picked up points in El Estadio Azteca in World Cup qualifying. But from a Mexican standpoint, Juan Carlos Osorio's side will feel hard done, as they feel that the U.S. came in and only pack it in and play for a point. Either way, the U.S. picking up a valuable point for Bruce Arena and his men.
Hercules Gomez, thank you very much. Let's take a look at your player ratings then, as put out by Jason Davis on ESPN FC. DeMarcus Beasley coming in at 6.5. Michael Bradley only 7.5. It's a bit harsh.
6.5.
That is harsh, isn't it? Goodness me, Jason. That's like Ali. What is rating?
I don't give halves.
Let's get some reactions, shall we, from Josie Altidore and Michael Bradley.
It's not an easy place to come with the altitude and everything. It makes it a very tough place to come because a lot of us don't play at this altitude. So the key was to stay focused, to stay compact, and also to be confident when you have the ball, to go forward and try to create chances. I thought we could have created maybe a little bit more, but I thought the guys were terrific. They worked very hard, and it's a good result.
It's a long 90 minutes here. You know that. You know that you've got to still find the right ways to put them on their heels, and we did that in moments. And so we feel good about the point. I think on another day, if we're a little sharper with some of our other chances, it's certainly a game we can win. but a point in Azteca is always good.
That's the key, isn't it? It was all about getting 3 points against Trinidad, tick that box. Anything else was a bonus. But to do that with that team, they managed to do it. Of course, for a lot more, go over to the website. And while you're there, you can download the audio version of the show. It is available every day. You can go do it at the website, or you can subscribe via iTunes.
Okay, I'll do that.
Whatever you say.
It's late. Coming up after the break, a very good weekend, well, for most of England. But we start in Bonnie, Scotland. Stevie, why are you putting that face?
You okay?
Well, did you watch the game?
Well, England dominated and were unlucky not to get 3 points. 20 minutes to go. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain.
Well, initially you wonder what's happening with the goalkeeper here. It's almost like he's trying to get out the road, but on closer look, it's a deflection off a defender.
Is it a deflection?
The ball's coming at him really quickly.
Right then, 1-0, but then hope for the Scottish. 3 minutes to go, Lee Griffiths.
Well, he's got to work on the celebration. However, he does good enough on the free kick. This is beautifully taken. Up and over the wall. This is a courtesy dive. Joe Hart, no chance. Have some of that.
And then, just 2 minutes later, Stevie Nichols off his seat. He's excited.
Oh, clearly
I
not.
know what's coming next.
So you're not as excited then?
Of course I was, but unfortunately I can't get what's going to happen in about 3 minutes' time out of my head.
What would happen, Stephen?
Well, what would happen is Gordon makes a good save. All of a sudden, all Scotland have to do is just kick the ball out anywhere but do this. Give it back to England straight away. Goalkeeper stands and watches, and Harry Kane puts it away. The goalie got to come for that.
It's a great
But
ball, Steve.
the point is, they should never have lost the ball in the
True.
first place. But it shouldn't have been a surprise, because they lost it the whole game.
Here's what Strachan had to say after the game.
Imagine being a player out there. It's all right for us sitting in here, and all I have to do is write, and all I have to do is shout. To be able to do that, it's annoying for them. So I can't be annoyed. It's annoying for them to do so much and have a result that could have been one of the best results ever. And I've also seen Scotland's best ever free kick, and then I see Scotland's second best free kick ever. And then I have a noise after that that is never heard anything like that before. So these memories will be with me, and I'll look at the players and saying, it's a bit unfair that you've got to keep coming back and taking knocks like that, but they turn up and do it.
You understand all that, Alex?
No, not at all. The first 10 seconds I just stare at him. What did he say? What?
Clear as a bell.
I want to start with you, Shaq. Because Joe Hart has been very much the focus of people's criticism after this draw. Should he be responsible for either of the free kicks?
No, I think it's become very easy to blame Joe Hart when goals go in against England. But both his free kicks by Lee Griffiths, very well taken. When I was a player, I would say if you get it up over the top of the wall and down in time with enough pace to beat me, fine. I'm not going to give you anything easy. Both these free kicks do exactly that. Maybe you want to question, maybe he could have inched a little bit to his right and then, or left and then right with successive free kicks. But even then, you are asking the goalkeeper to be slightly out of what he considers his natural position in playing for a free kick. I don't understand. I don't understand the criticism at all.
Do you have any problem with Joe Hart?
No, not at all.
No?
Listen, I don't think people realise how much pace is on the ball. You know, people seem to think that to get it up and over, you have to, take a bit off it. Well, not today, you don't. These balls absolutely fly, so I have absolutely no problem with Joe Hart.
No, you're fine. Now, one man who's not happy with Joe Hart joins us now. Gab Marcotti, you felt he should have done better?
Yeah, I mean, look, I will defer to the goalkeeper here, but I think especially on the second one, it's not so much his positioning, because as Shaka said, you're sort of guessing where he is. I just thought he just didn't get across very quickly. Now, from a goalkeeper of his standard, of his reputation, I just would have expected him to not have gone so late. And I'm talking about the second one here. The first one, whatever.
The second one's a complete guess. He has no idea. The ball's right in the middle.
It's not right in the middle.
It's pretty much right in the middle.
It's not right in the
so Joe Hart's got to try and figure out what side it's going to, And with the pace on the ball, what chance has he got unless he picks the right one?
I really appreciate the fact that Gab precludes his statement by saying, I defer to the goalkeeper, but
at the same time, in terms of England's own setup, for both those free kicks, Scotland put 2 men on the end of the England wall, and England don't put anybody in behind. So now, as a goalkeeper, standing behind that, you are unsighted by the Scottish players and know that if the ball comes directly at them, they can move, they can deflect it, there's nobody in behind to offer you any kind of protection. So you're looking at the end of your own wall, you're looking at the 2 Scottish players, you're thinking about your own side of the goal. I just feel defensively England could have set up better. Now, if England put 2 men to pair up with those Scottish strikers at the end of the wall, then that's one concern off your plate as a goalkeeper, which I don't think they helped Joe Hart at all in that regard.
God, you lost me about 2 minutes ago, Jack. But
I'll write it down. I'll text you later.
Defer to the goalkeeper, but...
Right, Stevie, when we were talking on Friday about this game, you said, I don't even know if I'm going to watch it, because what's the point? Scotland aren't going to win. They were a minute away,
well, I was always
1 minute away.
I was always going to watch it, and to be honest, up until the first free kick went in, I mean, we were getting what we deserved, which was absolutely nothing. I mean, England were dominating, we were just sitting tight, hoping for the best, and 2 pieces of magic. I actually don't think the second one was a free kick. I think we're fortunate to get it, but it was a fantastically taken free kick. And
then Harry Kane scores.
The unprofessionalism of the second goal is what sticks in my throat. You know, the goalkeeper makes a good save from a free kick. All we have to do is get the ball up the other end of the field. I don't care how bad it looks. You kick it over the stand. You kick it in the crowd. The only thing you cannot do is gamble. Try and make a pass and give it to the opposition. And guess what? Armstrong, I think it was, tries to make a pass, gives it to the opposition, and then the ball's in the back of the net. It's unprofessional is what it is.
It would also help to pick up the one guy that you cannot leave wide open inside the 6-yard box for England. That would be Harry Kane. That may be the guy that you want to pick up. Too easy of a goal late in the match.
Do you know what? We're talking about Joe Hart here. Xhaka. The goalkeeper the Scottish goalkeeper has to come and get that. I mean, Gordon has to come.
Yeah.
Harry Kane volleys the ball inside the 6-yard area. And the ball's come 30, 40 yards.
It's a fantastic ball by Raheem Sterling, but yes, you're right. I think it's one that the goalkeeper should come. Especially at that time of the game. Especially at that time of the game, you take a gamble, you get a hand on it, anything.
Hey, it was good to have a game like that after that disappointing Champions League final last weekend, wasn't it? Lift the spirits. Let's take a look at Group F then, shall we? England, fine. Slovakia, yeah. Scotland, no. Yeah.
Oh, man.
I could have told you that Friday.
There we go. Meanwhile, England against Venezuela in the Under-20 World Cup final. Talk us what happened 24 minutes in, Ali.
Well, it hurts is what it does. At this point, I thought, we're going to go up. Goalkeeper stranded. He doesn't quite know what to do. He's maybe thinking that this is going to be floated into the box. Instead, it's a shot by Lucena that goes off the post. Woodman wasn't getting there. But it is the woodwork that helps him out.
10 minutes before the break, England would break the deadlock. Calvert-Lewin with the effort here, then pouncing on the rebound.
Not much the keeper can do, Shaq, no?
No. Not once he wins this aerial duel here. It's a very good first save, and then you're hoping for a little bit of luck with the second.
17 minutes to go. Jake Clark-Salter with the penalty as he brings down the Venezuelan player.
Tell you what, the referee gives it, I'm not so sure it's a penalty kick. Either way...
Oh, yeah. There might have been some yelling going on at the Moreno household at this point.
Oh, man, imagine that.
Oh, no. It's hard to watch. It really is.
It was a horrible penalty, wasn't it?
Well, I think he's trying to go for the Panenka, but maybe the pressure of the moment hits it harder than he should.
Look at the tears.
Oh, boy.
England are the champions of the world. The good thing about the English is that they don't get too carried away. So, here's the back pages. Kings of the world, world champions. A lot of references to 1966. Young Lions end 51 years of new golden generation. Yay! The golden generation, of course, that won nothing as well in the past. Right.
No. You'll be lucky. You'll be lucky if you see 2 of those players play for England in the next 3 or 4 years. Guaranteed.
Right. Gab, what does this mean, big picture? Like, will we be sitting here in 6 years' time looking at this same team winning the World Cup in Qatar?
All right, well, first of all, as somebody who's been living in London for a very long time, living in England, I think it's kind of neat to see people wearing England shirts actually win trophies, because it hasn't happened before last night in my lifetime. That said, the Under-20 World Cup for European teams is a bit of a special animal, because there's an Under-21 European Championship this summer. Most teams send their best players who are eligible for both to the Under-21s. And so actually this was a bit of an understrength England team if you go simply by age group. Guys like Tammy Abraham and whatnot weren't there. So I don't know that you necessarily expect a lot of these guys to graduate into the England national team, but I think it does show that there's a lot of depth in it. Reopens a debate that, a lot of these guys have very, very little Premier League experience. In fact, a bunch of them have basically none. And so, that's going to undoubtedly reopen the debate whether more Premier League teams should be looking more towards the kids.
As much as obviously England get the back page headlines, for Venezuela, despite the defeat, this has been a special run for lots of reasons.
Yeah, and this group of kids will be treated as national heroes when they go back to Venezuela. They're expected to be received with all sorts of adulation. What's important here is the example that they leave for a country that is divided, clearly divided, and struggling through turmoil and violence and all sorts of things that are going on politically and socially. This is a team that showed ambition, that showed work, preparation, unity, all the things that sometimes as a society we lack in Venezuela. They've given an example for a whole nation to follow, and hopefully something that we can all learn from in the soccer world.
Yep.
But more importantly, socially and politically in our country.
And now, insurance-minded speeches from Geico.
Hardship. My grandmother would go through it every month to pay her insurance bill. First, she would handwrite a paper check, in cursive. Then, using her own tongue, she would wet a stamp for an envelope. Today, however, we need not weary our hands and tongues. Today, we can pay our Geico bill with the Geico app. Away with hardship. In with bill pay on the Geico app. Thank you.
Welcome back. Just a reminder, if you ever miss a show, fear not, you can download the audio version over on ESPNFC.com, or you can subscribe via iTunes. Let's go through some transfers, shall we, Gab? Starting off with the future of Marco Verratti. He's leaving PSG. Where's he going, Juventus or Barcelona?
It's all TBD, Dan, and there could be other teams, I think, in the mix as well. But his agent, Donato Di Campli, coming out pretty strongly and saying, listen, we've had a great run here, thanks so much, but it's time to move on. I think the issue with Juventus is they don't necessarily want to push the boat out and spend what they think his valuation might be, 70, 80 million euros, I think are numbers that have been mentioned. So they need to engineer this in such a way that they get some kind of cut price deal. From Barcelona's perspective, I think they're only really just now starting to wrap their heads around what they want. They could meet the valuation, but I don't think that they're necessarily going to be rushed into anything. So I'd expect this one to run a little bit.
Is it me, or is Verratti to Barcelona a no-brainer if you're Barca?
I don't think it's as clear as a no-brainer, because as good as a player as Marco Verratti is, I also think this is a guy that has a propensity for injuries. And you look at the numbers. In last season, 39 out of 57 matches he was available for. The season before, you think, well, maybe 1 year he misses 20 games. The season before is 28 out of over 60 matches that he was available for. So injuries can be a problem with this guy, and if you're going to pay this chunk of money and really say, well, this is going to be a major signing for you, you better make sure that this guy's available and to be selected and be on the field and be productive for you. I don't think that he has been that consistently enough for PSG.
If he is healthy.
No question he helps him. I think definitely Barcelona need help defensively in the middle of the park, and he fits the bill. I think the price tag is ridiculous, but at the end of the day, you're only worth what somebody will pay for you. To be honest with you, when I heard this rumour about this move, the first thing I thought about was this kind of tells everybody that players at PSG think they've no chance of going any further in the Champions League. Because if a 24-year-old wants out to go somewhere else to win things, that tells me there's something going on at PSG.
I think Barcelona need to take a chance on Verratti, despite the numbers. He is 24 years old. He is young enough. You are hoping for a little bit better luck. I just don't think they're creative midfielders of that ilk around. And Barcelona have struggled to replace Xavi, will soon struggle to replace the likes of Iniesta. I'm not sure what other option there is to Barcelona outside of Verratti in doing that.
Meanwhile, we've been hearing more from Diego Costa. Of course, the last time he spoke to the media, he talked about that text from Antonio Conte. Now talking about his future on playing for Atleti Madrid, he said, signing for Atleti doesn't mean that I wouldn't be playing. I could be loaned out. Of course, the transfer ban, Gab, means that they could sign him. They just couldn't register him until the start of next year. This seems to be an avenue that Costa is very much looking towards.
Yeah, well, in fact, there's people already drawing up a scenario whereby Atleti sign him, loan him out somewhere else, perhaps to AC Milan, and then in a year's time they sell Griezmann and they welcome Diego Costa back as their hero after he leads Spain to win the World Cup in 2018 in Russia. The last bit I kind of made up. But I think he's very conscious. Look, Diego Costa is a George Mendes player. He's going to find a home for him. He's going to find a good home for him. The one thing, from Chelsea's perspective is that, they probably won't get back as much as they'd hoped, because that's what happens after you go and put a big price tag on somebody and say, oh, look, he's not wanted here, come and take him.
We discussed this obviously a lot last week, and Shaq and Ali, you were both saying obviously there's something going on there, which means that Chelsea had no option really but to get rid of him looking forward. Stevie, you're saying whatever's there, it isn't worth losing him over.
No. Listen, we don't know what the situation really, but I just can't. I cannot believe that a player can perform the way Costa did last season and score the amount of goals he did and play as well as he did and have such a great partnership with the rest of the team as he did. And then all of a sudden, it's almost like they're getting divorced from nowhere. It makes no sense to me. And I don't care what Chelsea do. I don't see them getting a partnership that Diego Costa had with Hazard.
But maybe
anytime soon.
But maybe that gives
regardless of who they sign.
Maybe that gives you an idea of how much a pain in the backside this guy is. Because if you cannot deal with him in a manner in which you can still get production and have a workable relationship,
but then they clearly did, Ali, because they won the Premier League. I know. Without playing great, scoring goals.
I think they put up with it. I think Conte put up with it because they were in the middle of the season. But once the season was over and things were achieved both by Costa and Chelsea and Antonio Conte, I think that was it. And it's a clean break. And like in any marriage, that can be loving and passionate and all these things, well, divorce is a possibility as well.
I'll tell you what. Then Conte has got himself some leeway, because if I'm Abramovich, I'm going, hold on a second. Yeah. Why are we getting rid of our top scorer and one of our main players? So Conte must have some pull at that club right now.
I want to hear more from Ali about marriage.
Well, I can give you a few things. Well, I do love my wife. Oh. I love you, babe.
Oh.
love you.
How much love do you have for Andre Silva? He's looking for a move.
Not much, really.
There are some tenuous links on this show. Andre Silva to Milan. Is that a match made in heaven for you, Gab?
They're certainly very excited. I mean, we're talking about a guy who really only had, was much hyped, obviously, when he was 20, still only 21 years old. And in his first season, even though it wasn't a great season at club level, it was for him personally. He scored the goals. He showed sort of continuous upward improvement. And they're very excited about getting him at, I think in the end it's going to be around 35 million euros, which they think is a really, really good deal.
Meanwhile, I feel like we talk about this every summer, don't we? Cristiano Ronaldo. to China.
Hey,
he's going to get paid. Let's have a look.
Oh,
200 million euros.
That's nice.
That's the transfer fee. He'll get 120 euro net a year.
120 euro or million euro?
120 million net a year.
Do you know, if I am Real Madrid, I'm taking it. I'm taking the 200. Listen, you've got a guy who they already now are resting and know that they have to rest him. They can't play him every game. Take your 200 million, go and give Monaco the 135 for Mbappe, and you've got yourself a superstar for the next, 7 or 8 years.
Before we continue this discussion, Gab, is there any truth in any of this?
Well, first and foremost, there's capital controls in China right now, and the FA is actively dampening down on these sorts of transfers. So my first instinct would be to say it's hugely unlikely. It's hugely unlikely that he'd want to leave. If you recall the Champions League, he was, he may be used more sparingly now, but he was pretty darn good, and he's most people's favorite to win the Ballon d'Or this year. If those are the numbers, I mean, 120 million euros. Back of the envelope math, and that's a net figure. You're talking about somebody making in excess of $250 million a year. It's just not viable. It's not of this earth. So I would say no. I think it's completely made up, personally.
Shaka, you've always told us to follow the money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Would you if you were Ronaldo? Honestly, if that's the money that they're going to throw at him.
If that is
because
honestly the money...
He's got so much money at the moment, hasn't he? He's got too much money to know what he does.
Yes, but you could
never
have too much money. I don't see how you say no to that, but saying that, I don't see this as being a possibility.
OK, what if we go into the psyche of Ronaldo, Ali?
Yeah.
You say, right, you go to China, you take all this money, but you don't win the Ballon d'Or as a result. Whoa. What's he thinking then?
Oh, no. There's got to be some sort of Ballon d'Or in China. There's got to be something. No, I think he stays in Real Madrid.
Yeah.
Even if all this money is thrown at him, I think he stays in Real Madrid. There is something to be at the forefront.
Yeah.
Where everybody can see him all the time, where he's on the stage. That's what makes him and drives him.
Not many people in China will see him.
Yes, but are you going to watch those games?
700 million thousand of them.
Are you going to watch the game? Are you going to watch those games?
No.
Okay. There you go.
Forbes, by the way, has him at 122 million a year. He currently earns for now. I couldn't find your name on the list, Shaq.
How high is this list?
So he's not struggling to pay the cable.
100 million thousand is.
I think it's good. Right. Stevie mentioned it. Mbappe. PSG now, the latest club to be linked with the superstar Gab. This one doesn't seem to make too much sense.
Well, look, I mean, I think what's happened is that supposed bid from Real Madrid, and we don't yet know to what degree it was real, has obviously brought others out of the woodwork. And I think Mbappe's people kind of, they like to send a message to Vadim Vasiliev at Monaco, to show that, this is how we value him. And, there's a lot of people out there and consider this. I still don't believe he's going to move. Simply because he's told us that he doesn't particularly want to move. He wants to play every week, and he thinks he needs to develop. Obviously, if PSG put that kind of money on the table, sure, then maybe Monaco might even push him out the door. But every indication from, and I've spoken to people who know this guy, know his people very well, is that he's a really level-headed young man. He's a very serious professional, and he thinks that staying in Monaco is the right thing for him. Could his mind be turned? Of course it could. But I think right now it's people trying to set up deals and present them to Monaco.
Right then, Gab, let's talk about a deal that has actually been done, shall we? Victor Lindelof confirmed today as a Manchester United player coming from Benfica. How good is he, Gab?
I think it's a bit difficult to tell what level he's at, because I think he hasn't had that much time in the Benfica first team, but Mourinho is definitely a big believer. They sniffed around him in January. He ended up signing a new deal. I don't even need to tell you who his agent is and who did that deal, because you already know. And in the end, They delivered him in the summer for less than what his release clause would have been. So I think Mourinho's high on him and thinks that you can use him in midfield, you can use him at centre back, and maybe Lindelof and Bai could be the centre back partnership for the next 5 or 6 years.
We'll, of course, keep you up to date with all those latest transfers as and when they happen. Go over to espnfc.com and click on our Transfer Talk webpage. Welcome then to Extra Time. Should we start with movie review, Shaka? You saw Tom Cruise's latest film?
Yeah, I wasn't impressed.
And Shaka is very easily impressed.
Yes. What was your first choice?
What was it, Shaq?
That you watched?
And what happened?
Relate.
Oh.
Shaq, that mummy, is it a true story?
Yeah. Stevie, you don't come across as someone who goes to the cinema a lot, mainly because it costs
money.
Well,
why would you when you've got nonsense about mummies and all that? What's a lot of gap?
Do you remember, what was the last film you saw at the movies?
Can I get back to you?
Yes, yes you can. Let's start with a man who is in England to ask him this question. Gab Marcotti, what are England's chances to win the World Cup next summer?
Yeah.
Are we being trolled?
That's from Dan Thomas.
Well, you presume they're going to qualify, and there's going to be 32 other teams there, unless FIFA figure out how to bump it to 48 very, very quickly. I'd imagine, you'd put England where they usually are. In the top 8, top 10, things would have to break their way. And a lot's going to, I think, also depend on how the likes of Raheem Sterling, Dele Alli, Harry Kane, how those guys continue to develop. If a couple of those guys go to the next level, sure, I think they'd be in with, they wouldn't be favourites, but they'd be in with a shout.
Sterling could be sitting on his backside between now and the World Cup. So he could.
Yes.
Good for his development, huh?
England aren't winning the World Cup.
Yeah.
No chance.
I can't
Not a chance.
Yeah. I can't believe that Gab actually took this question seriously.
Gab's a professional.
Scotland's got more chance and we're not even going.
That's a ridiculous statement, isn't it?
It's ridiculous, is that question?
Oh, no, you took it to another level with that ridiculousness. Which team will Kylian Mbappe play for after the transfer market ends?
West Ham.
West Ham?
Liverpool.
Liverpool?
This transfer market, Monaco.
West Ham, Monaco. Your team, Gab?
I feel like I answered this question on the show, didn't I?
Well, just give it one word answer.
My guess is
Unless it's Real
Monaco.
Madrid, then it's 2. Monaco. Final question. Steve,
My guess is Monaco.
With possibly no Van Dijk move, any chance that Sacco...
Hey.
Not again.
Hey, there is a chance Sacco ends up back there.
finds himself back at Anfield?
Listen, if they don't make any signings, then they're going to have to keep him.
Lovely.
Exciting times ahead.
I'll tell you what, if you think Sacco's our saviour, then we're in trouble. I'll tell you that much.
Sacco is not the saviour. That is what we've learned on Extra Time today. We are back tomorrow.
And we learned about movies.
That you like very much.
Oh, did you think of your movie in the end?
No.
Was it in colour? 6 p.m. Eastern, ESPN News.